These are three things that we should know about godly marriages, backed by the Bible. I will be reading from the New International Version, and I just want to preface this video by saying there are multiple verses in the Bible that speak to these topics, so just know this is only a little bit of context. Starting off with submission and the hierarchy. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 to 23. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Then we go to 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. But I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. So these verses are basically saying, yes, wives should submit to their husbands. However, the husbands also need to submit to God. So it's God, Jesus, the man, the wife. Number 2, we should not divorce, and when you get married, you become one flesh. Going to Mark chapter 10, verses 5 to 12. It was because your hearts were hard that Moses wrote this law, Jesus replied. But at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So there are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. When they were in the house again, the disciples asked Jesus about this. He answered, anyone who divorces his wife and marries another woman commits adultery against her. And if she divorces her husband and marries another man, she commits adultery. Now, as it relates to divorce specifically, there are several verses in the Bible that talk about this and also talk about the conditions in which we can leave, that we can get divorced and we can remarry. When you get married and you become one, that means you now have to operate as a unit. When you're single, you're independent, you could just run off and do whatever you want, but that's not the case when you're married. Number 3, what do you do when an unbeliever and a believer get married? 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 12 to 15. To the rest I say this, I, not the Lord. If any brother has a wife who is not a believer and she is willing to live with him, he must not divorce her. And if a woman has a husband who is not a believer and he is willing to live with her, she must not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband has been sanctified through his wife, and the unbelieving wife has been sanctified through her believing husband. Otherwise, your children would be unclean, but as it is, they are holy. But if the unbeliever leaves, let it be so. The brother or the sister is not bound in such circumstances. Just like Jesus died on the cross for us to be saved, when you marry an unbeliever, you are basically becoming a vessel of salvation for them. So they get saved through you.